Welcome to Kids Express.
Join us as we see kids express their love for Jesus
while developing their character.
on Kids Express!
Today we are going to meet a young lady who takes time to share Jesus with others through canvassing and sharing literature. I'm Aunt Francine.
And I am Sofia. Can you guess where in the world today's guest comes from? Can you identify what state? If you guess Arkansas, you're correct. Let's welcome McKenna.
Hi, McKenna. Thank you for joining us on Skype. This is kind of special, all the way from Arkansas. And how are you doing today?
Good.
Good. So I don't know, have you ever had chocolate rolls? Have you ever made them? No? Well, I understand that this is one of the desserts for Arkansas, and I think it's made with pie, and then it has chocolate filling inside.
That looks good.
That looks delicious. I wish I could give you some, but I know that's one of the desserts, so we might dig in after this recording. But you know what? We are going to have a lot of fun learning about Arkansas. So tell us about Arkansas a little bit.
Arkansas is known as the natural state, and we also have the only active diamond mine in the United States. And people from all around come to visit the diamond mine, and whatever diamonds they find, they can keep. And we also live near a town called Hot Springs, and it gets its name from the natural hot springs that are there. And on a field trip with my school, I got to visit the hot springs and taste and feel the hot water.
That's interesting.
And
Yeah.
Hot Springs is also known for their bathhouses and located on a bathhouse row. And since the late 1800s, people have been coming to get hydrotherapy treatments and massages.
Wow. That is interesting, and I like the fact that, and so you were able to experience that, and I think you taste the sulfur or the iron. Do you sometimes it tastes different? Have you noticed that? Did you taste the water too? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
Yeah, it tastes differently.
I never tried one, but it sounds really fun.
Yeah, and going back to those mines too, I mean, I believe the diamond is the hardest rock or gem that exists on the earth. So that's kind of interesting that they get to keep whatever they find. That would be fun to go digging and looking for treasures. I haven't done that. Have you tried that yet? Is that on your to-do list?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do that later this spring after a couple rains.
Oh, after a couple rains, yeah, and it washes out the dirt. That makes sense. So tell us about how you are sharing Jesus. What's something that stands out that you share Jesus?
The school that I'm going to now, we do a lot of canvassing, and I do enjoy canvassing a lot. And we give out books like The Desire of Ages, Great Controversy, Ministry of Healing, and then another little book that's a portion of Steps to Christ.
Wow. And so how do you feel about doing that? I mean, what kind of experiences? So you were trained to do it? You went to class for it? Or you said something about your school?
In our school, we get trained for it.
Okay, yeah. Amanda just learned some steps and went to a little schooling, I would say, a little training session so that she could go out canvassing too, and that's a lot of fun. You get to meet a lot of different people. What's the biggest thing that stands out to you?
We leave the books on a donation basis for everybody, and they like them more when it's more of a thing, because we would just give them out, but if they pay for it, then it's more likely that they will read it. Mm-hmm. So I've noticed that a lot of people do buy them, and then it brightens their day. And
Wow.
it's exciting.
Does everybody like having the canvases, or do some people say no, I don't want one or something like that?
I had one in particular lady that she said that she went to a Catholic church and she didn't want to be converted because around there where we are canvassing, there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that go out, and they just don't want to hear you out because they assume that you're with that.
And so you feel rejected every once in a while, like they don't want you to hear what you say, and you feel bad because you have some truth that you'd like to share with them. But then you go on to the next house. Is there a particular story, like you were mentioning this Catholic lady that stood out? Is there anybody that you feel like you've made a change or you had prayer with that made it special?
Well, there's one guy also that he didn't buy the books, so sometimes we end up giving them away because some of them can't afford the books. So we gave away a small book and because he couldn't afford it, and we prayed with him, and I feel like his day got brightened, and that I really do think that he'll read the book.
That's good. That's good. And that's something that we can always do is always pray for them. Like sometimes you catch their names and you think about praying for them too when you've passed out those literature.
Yeah.
And you never know what kind of seed you're planting with these books and just being able to give that opportunity for them that they otherwise wouldn't have. So if there's one thing that you could think of that you're developing your character and how you want to be more like Jesus and something that you really want to develop and work toward, what would that be?
I'm trying to make more time to spend time with God and read the Bible more often, and just to get closer with Him because, in my daily walk, everybody needs that, and so I'm trying to spend more time with Him.
Yeah.
And I'm going through baptismal classes right now.
That's exciting to be taking baptismal classes. So how do you, when you know that that's your goal of wanting to spend more time with God, what have you found that works for you? For me, I'll tell you, that's fine. For me, it's always having the same time. Like maybe it's the first thing before you get out of bed or always having the same chair to sit down. It's always having the right routine place. Do you have something like that that you always go to and that you make that time at a certain time of the day?
Well, in our house, we have a worship room, and also sometimes I'll sit in my bed and journal out prayers and stuff.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
So, like you said, you even have a room in your house that you call a prayer room. So anybody in your family goes in there and they call it their prayer room and that's their time with God?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So, there's some strategies that sometimes that we can do to help us devote more time for God. So I know I was mentioning something about making the same time all the time, whether it's at 7 o'clock in the morning and you're always making that time for God, and then having that same chair or that same room like you constantly do. And like you said something about journalizing. Journaling your prayer. So you write prayers. Is there anything else that you write out in your prayer journal?
No, it's just I just pray to Him. And
That's good.
Writing.
So in your prayer journal, do you write prayer requests and then sometimes do you write down when they've been answered? Do you sometimes reflect upon them?
I have a separate journal that I do that
Okay,
on.
so you do that. And then how about what kind of resources do you think of? Besides the Bible, are there any other resources that you bring to your studying or when you're making that time for God? What's your strategy when you make that time for God? What's the first thing do you do? Do you start with prayer or do you read into the Bible and then pray? What kind of walk us through what you usually do if you're doing your private devotion time?
I pray and before and after, and I read the Bible and Steps to Christ.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
And then you're doing those baptismal classes, and so you're doing that with your pastor in your church?
Yes.
That's something that all of us could do. And I really appreciate that you want to grow and spend that time with God because sometimes we get so busy and we find out that if we don't devote our time for Christ early on or make that a consistent pattern, that our day doesn't go so well. Have you ever found that out where your day doesn't go as well as it could have because you didn't spend that time with God? Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you think?
It's easier to get upset with people.
Yeah. You're right, because sometimes just reading the Bible calms our spirit and it puts us in the right mind frame of what Christ would do. I think you've got a good point there. And those are kind of the resources that we can talk about. And you know, when we're talking about making time for the Bible, do you know that word persevere? Are there days that sometimes you don't even feel like studying the Bible?
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's some times where I just had a rotten night's sleep, and I would rather sleep in than to read my Bible. Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah.
And so if we persevere and we are consistently trying to go for that, then maybe we can get through it and have a better day, because I know for me that would be another thing. What do you try to do when you want to make time for God?
What I mostly do is sometimes I like drink something or put water, so I like wake up and then I'm like, I have to read this. It's more important than going to sleep. So then I read a little, and then if I'll read at least 10 minutes, and then if I'm tired, then I'll go to sleep.
You've got a good point, because having worship and private devotion time with God in the evening before going to bed also helps us have a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And for some of us, I mean, if we think about Jesus when he was growing up, he would spend time first thing in the morning and before going to bed. And I think that is something that we can all think about and try to devote that time both in the morning and in the evening. And I'm thinking of a text here in 1 Corinthians 2, verse 12 and 13. And would you like to read it, or would you like me to read it?
You can read
okay.
it.
I'm going to say, it says, "Now we have received not spirit of the world, but the Spirit is from God, that we might know things that have been freely given to us by God. These things I also speak, not in the words which man's wisdom teaches, but which the Holy Spirit teaches, comparing spiritual things with spiritual." Meaning, what we have, the wisdom and the spiritual things really comes from whom?
God.
God. He's the source of all wisdom, and the more we spend time with him, the more we can learn about God. And you know, there's some famous people that you might realize that have made that time with God, and they have grown to be wise people. Sometimes we think of some smart people that are having a lot of wisdom, but the power is freely given by God. I think it's time for a question.
Ooh, yes.
We better get going. We don't have much time.
This question comes from Louine Dial in South Africa to Francine. Our guests, McKenna and me, what is it like in the U.S.? Can you share what you like about where you live?
So she lives in South Africa, and what's something that we can talk about in the United States? McKenna, you have something? Go ahead.
I like the beaches, and there's lots of mountains.
The United States has a variety of landscape.
Yeah.
How about you, McKenna?
I've visited over 30 states, and I enjoy all the different places that we've gone because there's something new in every place.
There's a lot of landmarks out there. What I like about the United States that sometimes we take for granted is that we have anything we want. We can just go to the store and buy it. And some other countries, like in South Africa, I haven't been to South Africa yet, but there's some places that they don't have the resources that so many of us take for granted. And for me, that's something that we can just go to the store. Anything we can think of, we just go buy it.
Yeah.
And so and I like the trees, like you mentioned, mountains and trees. I like that too. But again, the Bible always tells us that if we want wisdom and understanding, we just have to ask for it. Isn't it wonderful that we have a loving God who wants the very best for us? He will give us the tools and the power to improve our character so we can shine for him for everyone to see. Thanks for joining us on Kids Express!